Catholics can say some pretty dumb things sometimes, so here's 5 things I think we should stop saying. The first one is just go to the Mass and you'll see. And what I mean by this is when we present the beauty of the Mass as almost a reason why someone should become Catholic. We'll say something like, just go to the Mass and you'll be so captivated by how beautiful it is that you'll just know that it's from God. And there's at least 3 reasons why we should not be saying this. The first one is that whether intentionally or not, it can give off the impression that beauty is the reason why someone should become Catholic. But ultimately, you should become Catholic because it's true, not because it's beautiful. If Catholicism has all the beauty in the world and all the desirability in the world, but it's not true, then you shouldn't be Catholic. And likewise, if you don't desire it at all, but it is true, then you should be Catholic. So while beauty might attract someone to pursue Catholicism more, and that's good, it shouldn't be the reason why someone becomes Catholic. The second reason why I think this can be problematic is that they might just not find it beautiful. Before I was Catholic, attended Mass for several months, and it was probably 6 or 7 months before I ever attended a Mass that I was really captivated by. And that was going to all kinds of different parishes. That was going to Reverend Novus Ordos, that was going to multiple different Latin Masses, to Byzantine liturgies, to Maronite liturgies, and ultimately it wasn't until I went to a Chaldean Catholic liturgy that I was really blown away by the Mass. Now, yeah, that's just my preference, but that's the point. Everyone has different preferences, and they might not find beautiful what you find beautiful. And I think it's good to invite people to Mass and to explain what you find beautiful about it, but don't get someone's hopes up to just be so blown away by the beauty of the Mass that they'll just want to be Catholic. The third reason why I think this can be problematic is that it might actually backfire. They might go somewhere else. If beauty is a determining factor of where they end up, then they might find more beauty in something like Eastern Orthodoxy or even another religion altogether. Believe it or not, beauty is outside of the Catholic Church too. There are other religions that have beautiful temples, beautiful music, and ultimately, if we say that beauty is the reason why you should go somewhere, then they might go somewhere else because they might find something else more beautiful. The second thing that I think we should avoid saying, even if it might be well-meaning, is just come home. Now, when people say this, they mean it in a loving and endearing way. And for many Catholics, they came into the church and they really did feel a sense of home that they hadn't felt in their entire life. Or maybe people who were lapsed Catholics who came back felt like they came back home. And for many people, maybe they had someone invite them to just come home, and that felt very welcoming, and it actually did contribute to them coming closer to the church. But I think for many people, if not most, this can actually come off a little bit manipulative. Not that that's what you intend to do, but it can come off like you're capitalizing on their spiritual vulnerability and confusion, and ultimately it can actually be a little bit off-putting and make them just not want to listen to you anymore. Now, it's good to talk about why we personally feel at home in the Catholic Church, but we should be careful about making it sound like we're trying to capitalize on someone's spiritual vulnerability and confusion. The third thing that we need to be careful about not doing or not saying is saying something like, I just take Jesus at his word, or do you believe in Jesus when he says XYZ? Now, in particular, I'm thinking about the doctrine of the Eucharist, but this could probably apply to many other scenarios as well. But take the Eucharist, for example, the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Many people might say something like, I just take Jesus at his word. He says, this is my body, so I believe it's his body. But this can come off a little bit prideful and conceited, and it makes it seem to the other person like you're not really taking them seriously. Because taking someone at their word doesn't always mean taking them literally if what they meant was not meant to be taken literally. If I tell you something using hyperbole, taking me at my word doesn't mean taking me literally when I meant it hyperbolically. For example, Jesus said you have to hate your father and mother in order to follow him. But taking him at his word in that statement doesn't mean taking him literally, because he didn't mean it literally. Likewise, taking Jesus at his word when he said to cut your hand off or pluck out your eye if they cause you to sin doesn't mean taking him literally. Taking him at his word in that case means understanding the point that he's making and taking that seriously. So if communion was meant to be merely symbolic and that's the message that Jesus was trying to convey, taking him at his word doesn't mean taking him literally. Taking him at his word in that case would be to recognize that he's speaking symbolically. So if we say something like, I just take Jesus at his word, it comes off as though you're implying they don't really take Jesus seriously. And that's not fair or charitable, and they're not going to take you seriously because you don't seem to be taking them seriously. And especially don't say something like, do you believe in Jesus when he says XYZ? Like, do you believe in Jesus when he says, this is my body? because this is just a manipulative, baity kind of question. Imagine if a Jehovah's Witness came up to you and said, "Do you believe in Jesus when he says the Father is greater than him?" And of course, you want to say, "Well, yes, I believe in him when he says that, but I know that he doesn't mean what you think he means by that," right? So it's kind of a baity question, so we should avoid that altogether. It's not charitable, it's not going to get us anywhere in any sort of conversation. The fourth thing we want to be careful about saying or implying is that Protestants just want to do whatever they want, that they just don't want to accept the papacy because they just are rebellious children who don't want to accept authority. That's just not true. Most Protestants I've known in my life have been very serious about growing in holiness, and I've seen many Protestants fight and strive to overcome their sins, and many of them have overcome big sins in their life. So we shouldn't act like Protestants just want to live recklessly, and that's the only reason why they don't accept the authority of the Catholic Church. The fifth, and probably the most controversial, or at least the most initially surprising thing that I think we should be careful about saying is this, and hear me out. The bread and wine transform at the Mass into the body and blood of Christ. Now you might be thinking, wait, are you denying Catholic teaching? No, not at all. I firmly believe in the doctrine of transubstantiation. But why do we call it the doctrine of transubstantiation and not the doctrine of transformation? Well, because we don't believe the form changes, we believe the substance changes. We receive the body and blood of Christ under the form of bread and wine. The word transform, however, literally means to change form or appearance. Now, that's not just the etymological makeup of the word. The definition of the word transform really is to undergo a significant change in form or appearance. But that's the exact opposite of what we teach. Now, I think it's perhaps legitimate to use this term if you qualify it correctly, like if you say something like a mystical transformation, or if you say the substance transforms, perhaps that would be legitimate. But I just don't think it's the most helpful thing to do to just casually talk about transformation of the bread and wine, because we might take for granted that we know what that means. We might just mean it changes, and that's all we mean. We're using the term more casually. But from someone on the outside looking in, when they see people using these very precise terms like transubstantiation, we kind of set the bar a little bit high to be very precise with our language, because that's kind of a big fancy word, right? And we don't use it for no reason, just to sound smart. It's because we're trying to say a very particular thing, and we're trying to avoid saying something that we don't teach or believe. So we want to be really precise with our language, and if we're going to use a word like transform, I think it's okay, but we need to qualify it and unpack the meaning of that. We shouldn't just use that word without explaining what we mean. So that's just my opinion. I hope these things were helpful for you and maybe will help you engage in better, more charitable, and more clear and articulate dialogue with your non-Catholic friends and brothers and sisters. So anyways, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. It really does help. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day and may God bless you.